Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the New Normal, your go-to source for in-depth discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues impacting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha, and joining me, as usual, is my co-host Jason Giles, Executive Director of the Indian Gaming Association. Today, we're honored to welcome James Meggesto, a partner at Holland Knight, and Samir Patel, an associate at Holland Knight. They recently authored an article examining the current state of sweepstakes gaming. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's talk a little bit about your article.
Mhm.
Um, um, why now? Why sweepstakes?
Uh,
Thanks. Go ahead, Samir. Yeah, jump right in. Great to see you guys. Thanks for having us.
yeah, thank you for having us. The reason why that we wrote this article is because, as everybody's seen, and I'm sure as everybody is in the audience has seen, sweepstakes has percolated kind of to the top of issues right now facing the gambling industry and Native Indian tribes. And what's peculiar about this case that we centered our article around, Knapp versus VGW, is it's the most mature as far as timelines through the court system is concerned. There's already a case scheduling order. Trial is set for October of this year. Discovery is due at the beginning of April. There's also a court-mandated mediation that's due in the middle of April. So we're kind of seeing this case go through the court system as it evolves, whereas a lot of the other cases that we've seen that implicate sweepstakes casinos, either they have arbitration clauses and in those cases then get moved over to arbitration, which becomes a black box for litigation, or they've just been filed, and so the parties are going through that dance of submitting motions to each other.
And just to add on to that, I mean, I think we got involved, and certainly with a number of our tribal clients that are in the gaming industry. I've been a little bit surprised by the lack of sort of urgency that I've seen. Certainly not from you all. Obviously, IGA has been all over it. I know the American Gaming Association, AGA, you had Chris Silke on. He and I know each other. We're golf buddies sometimes, but he was talking about it last year and raising the issue that it's going to impact tribes. And looking around the country, obviously there's lots of different tribes in different states with different compact regimes, but the common denominator is that this is an intrusion into our regulated space. And I think the more we talk about it on shows like this and in articles like what Samir and I did, is really to raise awareness in Indian country and start to get ready for the threat that it is and how we respond.
Yeah, to me, what was interesting is that, it was a case of, it's easier just to do it and ask permission later. I've been approached several times now about, coming in from the cold and helping them navigate these treacherous, obviously have no interest in doing that. But, after the fact does not endear them to anyone, and if anything, I think you're starting to see, the rise of the backlash against the industry. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. What's this in Florida about Knapp and VGW?
Yeah, so Knapp is a user of sweepstakes casinos that are run and owned by VGW, and VGW is one of the bigger freemium dual currency providers out there in the market. And so Knapp was a user of VGW, and he lost $1,000. So they say in their complaint. And so he filed a complaint against VGW. And what's peculiar about Knapp's case is that along with VGW, he's brought in payment processors as co-defendants. that being Fidelity International Services and WorldPay. And we can get into why that is peculiar in a sec. But so Knapp brought this case. He said that the sweepstakes casino, VGW, violates Florida state statutory law. And another thing that makes this case peculiar from others is that Florida is one of only a handful of states that have concrete sweepstakes laws on the books. A lot of most other states, they don't mention sweepstakes at all. Whereas in the state of Florida, sweepstakes that work with prizes worth more than $5,000 need to be registered with the Department of Agriculture. There's to be a surety bond, and then there's also other requirements where rules need to be clearly articulated to users. So it provides that central statutory language that Knapp could use in order to claim that VGW and its subsidiaries were operating illegal gambling platforms. And so he filed that case back in December. They amended their complaint in February. It was given to a court judge in March. And so, as I alluded to before, it's now gotten the law. It's now evolved within the Florida statutory court system. It was actually moved to federal Florida court because it was certified as a class. And so the Class Action Fairness Act dictates that it gets moved to federal court here in Florida. But as Jason and James know, as far as CAFA is concerned, they still need to use the state laws regarding illegal gambling within that case. And so that's where we're at right now. There has been a lot of jostling, a lot of motions regarding dismissing this case against certain defendants. For example, WorldPay. And again, WorldPay, as a payment processor, wanted to back out of this case and dismiss his case against them, claiming that they're not doing anything nefarious and that they're just providing payment processing to what they deem to be a legitimate business operation. With the payment processors, again, with another thing that makes this case peculiar is that the UIGEA is kind of lurking in the background, the Unlawful Internet Gaming Enforcement Act, because we have payment processors that are named as co-defendants within this case. We've kind of seen this template used in other cases now in other states, where in New Jersey, I believe a couple of days ago, or it could have been last month, my apologies, but Google and Apple were named as co-defendants as part of a sweepstakes case. And so because of this case and its maturity, again, I'm kind of harping on this, but because of its maturity within the court system, we could get a lot of answers sooner rather than later regarding how states may treat sweepstakes casinos. But I also would add the caveat that there is a court-mandated mediation that is supposed to end on April 18th. And so hopefully they don't get to that and they don't come to a settlement, so that we can kind of see what goes on behind that black box when it comes to adjudicating sweepstakes casinos.
That seems to be, go ahead, Jason. Go ahead. Sorry.
We posted that article here on the chat today for folks, so please go ahead and download that and take a look at James and Samir's article and keep it as part of the research and the materials we've been distributing on this. There's already a couple comments in the chat about how they don't feel like tribes are holding states to account on this. I think it's a little too early to say that. I get each state is different, and in a place like Wisconsin, they've been reluctant for a long time to take action on other forms of illegal gambling, be it at the pubs and stuff. But I get the sense that a lot of attorney generals are waking up to this, and it's part of it is because these guys were so brazen, and they have celebrities advertising for them. They're constantly advertising during football games. But Samir, what's the peculiarity about going after the pay processors? And some of these guys we just saw, but WorldPay was out there, Victor, at the International Gaming Conference, and
I was at the reception too, man. Let me tell you,
oh,
they
you
were
were?
like, "Oh my God," they carried me, and they actually like threw flowers in front of me when I walked to the party. Here, have a seat in the front. I felt I was being squired, I think, or my wife was jealous.
Yeah. Don't look
So
behind
yeah,
these lawsuits where we're facilitating a lot of these payments. But but what are the peculiarities there, Samir, as opposed to, some of these other enforcement actions and stuff that are largely leaving some of the third parties out of this?
So I will note that in Knapp's complaint, they don't mention the UIGEA at all. It's not, they don't mention that WorldPay or FIS are violating UIGE laws. The reason why it's peculiar is, well, first off, as all the lawyers that are watching and those that are in the panel could attest, I remember in tort law, the tort law professor said, sue everybody. And, it was demonstrative like that, where you just try to sue everybody, you bring everybody in it.
Right.
And James, you could add a little bit more color to this, but by bringing in Apple, Google, FIS, WorldPay, there's more, the coffers are bigger, right? The potential for penalty, especially in the state of Florida, by violating one of those 849 chapter regulations, there's treble damages.
Mhm.
So it would only make sense for plaintiff attorneys to bring in these massive companies that are able to pay these huge amounts of damages that plaintiffs are looking for.
I just
Yeah.
got a text. I just got a text saying that a memo from Trump. They rescinded everything his orders. So
Yeah.
back to normal,
Yeah,
everybody. No, never
yeah.
mind. Never mind. Sorry, I didn't mean to
It was a
do.
pretend impoundment. So, but
But
James,
anyhow, meanwhile,
elaborate.
the Navajos are still locked up, aren't they?
Yeah. That's, I mean, of all the
And
things, the
Jason and I was
outcome.
talking. I mean, how messed up do you have to be to confuse a Navajo with a Mexican? You know what I mean?
Oh,
How
I said that.
badly? No, I said it. I said it
Okay.
absolutely. I said it. How bad do your eyesight has to
Mhm.
be? To lock up a bunch of
Right.
Navajos in Wisconsin. Where were they? Just Chicago, something like that. So,
Chicago and other
all right,
cities,
all
but
right, back to our normal
yeah,
program. I'm sorry.
yeah. But James, I mean, so what Samir is saying, like, I actually, when I read your article, I started thinking, yeah, why not go after the people that are facilitating this? Because, they just want to throw up their hands and like, oh, we're just doing our business and, processing payments, and we don't know anything about this illegality. They don't even have a standard of care to look at what they're processing is within the confines of the law. I mean, I think it's a smart strategy in a way if you can cut off some of this funding, they
Well,
might go.
I think it's this new modern world where likes mean something and fist bumps are now legally binding contracts or something like that. I think that's what we're dealing with, you
I
know?
mean, it's modern day Casablanca. I'm shocked there's gambling going on
Wow.
here. I'm shocked that this
Wow.
is happening, and that's
Yeah.
kind of the reaction. But Jason, back to your earlier point, I mean, I think we're certainly raising awareness in Indian country, but it is probably premature, for a lot of tribes, to start, adversarial proceedings or related discussions with states because, as we all know, tribal state relations are complex and they're not
Mhm.
just gaming compacts. And I think another way that these lawsuits and the sort of sue them all and let the defendants figure it out, alleviate some of that immediate pressure on states attorneys generals, as they get their big institutions, and it's going to take them a while to get their arms around it and feel what's a comfortable legal strategy, balanced with, state interests, which obviously include tribal interests when they have a compact in play.
Mhm. Yeah, and let's be honest, it's not the type of thing that rises to like a bodily injury crime or, it's not a violent crime. At least we hope people aren't committing violent crime to buy free tokens to play on a
But
to
here's
buy
the thing is
secondary
we
tokens to
don't know. We don't
well,
know. There's no
well,
player
hey,
protections.
so
It's unregulated.
exactly.
nobody knows where the money is. WorldPay, I mean, WorldPay
Uh,
might know where it is, but you know what I mean? And then, when I was in Barcelona, Ainsworth, a tribal leader came up to me with a picture of software that Ainsworth is selling. Now, these guys have slot machines in our casino floor. Now, are they selling software? Is this software live in California or the rest of Indian country or the rest of the states? These questions at this point are unanswered, but I think you're looking at some people in this industry that are willing to push the boundaries, of what is legal and what is illegal.
well,
And I think
Victor,
we're seeing,
right.
go ahead.
The software companies are going to say the same thing. Hey, we sell the sweepstakes software to, I don't know, McDonald's or somebody, where it's, what do they have reason to question?
It's not working out for Evolution. Read that article, the recent article about Evolution, and they're selling their software being used in black markets and unregulated market. And here they are in New Jersey and Michigan and stuff like that. And yet their software is being used illegally in other parts of the country. And they've admitted it so. So, you know what? Until you push back on these guys are going to do it. Now, I have a question. I've been approached by tribal attorneys, very well respected and honored tribal attorneys, and they kind of feel, and I kind of feel that, a path through legality goes through tribal gaming. You know what I mean? And, the tribal regulators aren't necessarily chained down by these arbitration laws. You know what I mean? Is that an approach to go through tribal gaming after these guys, to go through Indian country, to go after the sweepstakes?
Well, certainly, we can start at the top with, NIGC obviously has enforcement authority, broad enforcement authority in IGRA, and to the extent there is Class 3 gaming that's occurring in Indian country that's uncompacted, that's certainly a violation of IGRA, and they have primary enforcement authority. So tribes could turn, rather than, expend resources with their tribal gaming commissions, could certainly turn to the NIGC and say, we need help. That's exactly what you're there for, is to help to protect the integrity of our gaming. And this is an invasion that's, sneaky and difficult to shut down. It'd be one thing if it was a brick and mortar facility, but the whole point of the insidiousness of this is that it's hard to grab, and we tribes and other regulators could end up being in a position of whack-a-mole. Just you snuff it out here, and they tweak the software, and it pops up in a different context.
And going back to your what we discovered at International Gaming Conference, and so much of it is anecdotal, but I had some pretty good some college kids tell us they sports bet on these free sites, and one kid in particular, he went to the University of Missouri, said everybody that sports bets there is using the free sites. They purchase those secondary coins, and then they're betting on NFL games and college games, just like you would at FanDuel or any one of the legalized mobile sports books. So that's why I think this issue is the number one issue for the gaming industry at large, and then particularly for tribes where you have exclusivity and you've got compact negotiations coming up, and obviously the technology is the driving factor here, because it's getting so much easier and easier to make these types of, I guess, workarounds around traditional gaming. And the kids today are very savvy to this, and I believe it when they're telling me a lot of these. That's how the college kids are sports betting, is through these free sites. So I appreciate your article, and this case, it still has a ways to go. Samir, is that where are we at procedurally in this case? Because we'd love to get some good precedent out of this.
Yeah, so discovery is due by October 4th. At least that's what the scheduling order says as far as the docket is concerned. And then trial is set for October. Again, I alluded to a court-mandated mediation. That's supposed to be wrapped up by, I believe it's April 18th. So I think for those that are looking at this case and keeping an eye on it and seeing where it's going, I think April 18th is one of those days that we've circled on our calendar. Hopefully, it doesn't get to mediation for our sake, just so that, again, we can see beyond the black box of what happens or what's going to happen, how courts will interpret current gambling laws, that being price consideration and prize, and seeing how they look at that in relation to sweepstakes. I think that is what everybody is looking for. And again, sweepstakes operators, judiciously, they put in arbitration clauses within their user agreements, terms and conditions. I think exactly for that reason is to keep that within the black box.
Mhm.
But Jason, I'll also add, I mean, you went on a great lengths to talk about what younger users are doing. I do want to point out two things as well. One, I think there's a little bit of conflation between freemium models and sweepstakes coins. Those are two separate business tracks as far as gambling is concerned. There are figures that are out there that say that the freemium model is just as big as the sweepstakes model. And so for those that can't distinguish between both, is you have your freemium model, which is just your gold coins. And those are people that are just using gold coins and playing chance style games with gold coins. And there are figures out there that put this market at $12 billion. And then you have your sweepstakes, which is your gold coins, then your sweep coins. And some estimate that to be at $12 billion. And so those are two different attack vectors facing tribal nations. And I think it's imperative that we separate both of them and look at both of them individually, just to be thorough.
It seems to me that the tribes really need to focus on this. And I'm on the board for the National Center for Indian Child Welfare, and when you're always on attack from these organizations like these right-wing think tanks and stuff like that, they go out of their way to find cases specifically to take up to the courts. And I think we as an industry need to do the same thing. We need to get behind a couple of these cases, get past the arbitration stuff, and like you said, get away from the black box and get to the truth of what this thing is. Now, you have some states moving forward. I see today there's an article about West Virginia by the end of the week is going to have something, a cease and desist. You have Michigan moving forward. You have Connecticut moving forward. Why do you think it's taken so long for the states to get in front of this?
Well, one, it's what was discussed a little bit earlier. It is in the grand scheme of their enforcement activities, it just hasn't had enough of a profile. And I think one of the things that's been challenging for the industry, throughout the country is raising that profile and trying to explain that, the figures Samir mentioned. I mean, $12 billion industry that's not paying any taxes. And so I think mentioning the lost tax revenue, it's one thing to have an unregulated activity and you can talk to legislators and others in influence and regulation and talk about the potential dangers, but sort of money talks also. And when you explain the loss of tax revenue, I think that starts to hit home and you see increased activity, recognizing that that's a lot of money that they're not getting.
Yeah, and also, in California, you see, they're hiring the lobbyists. The big one is Chumba. You have Prize Picks running around right now. They're over at my casino right now, over at a conference, telling everybody what great friends they are to Indian country. But they're also very frightened that, we're going to come down on them and their business model is going to collapse. You know what I mean? So, they're scrambling. They see the writing on the wall too, but, they're playing the game too. Chumba is spending a lot of money on lobbyists. They're spending a lot of money on in California. And I think that's the big one that everybody's really concerned about, but listen, we have our eyes focused on these guys, and we will be talking about them at our show. And by the way, this is we're still continuation of this discussion and stuff like that. But in California, you definitely see them sweating,
To talk, to just add about money talks, I think I read on your website that the Sports Betting Alliance has aligned with California tribes to combat sweepstakes operators within the state of California. So as sports books are getting more in tune with the threat of sweepstakes casinos, that only raises the profile of the issue.
Jason, what do we think, man?
Well, I mean, and while we've got you two here, I mean, it's a as you guys see it from a law firm perspective, and you guys are helping clients on this. What do we what do we need out of NIGC, and what do we need out of tribal gaming regulatory bodies? Is there stuff that either one of them could do that you wish, oh, I wish there was like an opinion from the general counsel at NIGC, or this tribal gaming commission could issue their own cease and desist orders if they found folks within the reservation or on property playing it. Is there any of that kind of stuff out there?
Well, it's certainly possible. And, tribes are going to probably start to take a look and figure out if there's, an injury in fact, how much is happening that's impacting our bottom line. And from the, at the national level, the NIGC, we're a little bit challenged without having gotten a confirmed chair through a lame duck. So we're, in an acting
Right.
situation, which, sort of hinders things. I mean, I think the acting, the nature of an acting chair is to, really not strike out in new enforcement areas, but it's going to be a problem, and the statutory authority continues to exist. So, balancing that with, different tribal priorities, you have kind of two different challenges if you can generalize, and it's hard to with Indian country, but obviously in California, sports betting doesn't exist. So there's the class of states, and there's a few others, Minnesota, to name, has large tribal presence, but no, legalized sports betting yet. That's one area where sweeps are eyeing and trying to fill that void. And then there's the other tribes that are compacted that sports betting does exist, and it's, potential violation of those exclusivity agreements, and potential payments, in some states are substantial, and tribes are making good on their end of the bargain, and but not enjoying the full exclusivity that they bargained for. So I think tribal governments and gaming commissions will have to take a look at where their priorities lie, and where they can make the most impact as they start to get into this. But as we all know, it's hard to be the first, and I think that's why there's a lot of eyes on Florida with this litigation, because it's furthest along, and will sort of make the first path that may or may not be followed.
Yeah,
Samir,
go ahead, Jason.
anything there? I mean, Samir, in the past, this country in particular have been good about shutting off illegal gambling operations. Those offshore books got away with stuff for a long time, and everybody knew they were doing it. And the banks didn't want to take any responsibility for all the money flowing. We don't have a really good enforcement model on this. We have California state AG after state AG who wouldn't address card room stuff and things of that nature. What do you see, Samir? I mean, is this going to be another tough one? Like, is there a possibility VGW could actually win this case or settle out in arbitration? Yeah.
So what I will say is, from VGW standpoint, again, so in the state of Florida, if VGW were to lose, then there's potential treble damages to the plaintiff. During mediation, it would almost make sense for VGW to offer the plaintiff quadruple damages, just so that the case doesn't go through the transparency of a trial. And so, and we've seen that in Fliff had a case in California, and it was a big case, I believe, at the beginning of last year, sorry. And everybody was looking at this Fliff case in the state of California. And that was the first case that identified the roadblock of an arbitration clause. And then all of the other cases that had come after that, they've all kind of resorted back to the motion to compel arbitration and then go through that black box. And VGW and other sweepstakes operators, freemium operators, have been operating, skating ever since, even since that first Fliff one from January 2024. And so it could make sense. It could be part of the strategy for VGW and other freemium operators to just keep on settling and keep on operating. I think where this ultimately goes, and we've kind of seen it teetering and kind of spilling over the last couple of weeks, is states actually changing the laws on the books. That would by far be the most effective route to ban sweepstakes operators. And it's this notion, the definition of gambling or gaming being prize consideration and prize consideration chance, changing those laws, try banning or modifying one of those elements, or outright banning sweepstakes, kind of like what the Nickel G's iGaming Model Act articulates. We could talk about that in a sec, but having the states change the laws or incorporating sweepstakes into their laws and articulating a ban on them, that's probably the biggest foolproof way. Now, in an effort to do that, Nickel G's has drafted the iGaming Model Act, and their hope is to have states adopt that for their eventual iGaming laws. One thing to note is that within that language, they do mention sweepstakes casinos, but they in the definition of it, they explicitly articulate only the dual currency model. And they do not articulate the freemium model, which, again, I will harp on. It's just as significant a threat as sweepstakes casinos based off of the numbers from, because a lot of these freemium companies are publicly traded companies in other countries. So they have to file 10Qs and financial reports. So based off of those financial reports, freemium is certainly just as big of a threat as sweepstakes casinos. And the Nickel G's Model Gaming Act doesn't mention that. So states can try to finesse the language around sweepstakes casinos and only banning dual currency rather than freemium. But the most effective way, and we're kind of seeing it now, is states warming up to the fact that they need to change their actual gambling laws on their books.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, that could be-
yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, it's a broader question too. Like we all know this Wire Act is woeful date, and I'd like to see UIGA, if there's stuff in that could help out, that we get behind that a little more. That's something that was one of the first things I worked on here when I got to NIGA at the time, and there was a lot of NFL pushback and fantasy football pushback on that law, but I think it really was trying to be forward looking, and it's about time that somebody started using it to prosecute illegal gambling transactions. I will say, Victor, this we're seeing it. When these companies run around, as Samir just said, they're at our trade show coming up in San Diego. They're going to have a booth.
They'll be there. They'll be there. Just
And,
follow the trail.
Yeah, and we want everyone to support Indian gaming and be a good corporate partner. But at some point we're gonna have to start pointing all this stuff out to folks.
Well,
No,
like Jason, also you're dealing with the deeper issue here. I mean, you look at things like loot boxes and skin trading and all these things that are on the peripheral and pushing that line of gambling. I mean, you go to a loot box, you got spinning wheels, and my kid goes to a Roblox and they have slot machine type of devices that you play to get other things that you pay for Robux. So I think the idea of freemium is antiquated. I think legally we're looking at it. It's changed from what it used to be and what it is. And you're looking at these people that are exploiting it, and look at what they're doing. They're after the children. And yet you have a country that doesn't do that. So I think it's incumbent upon us as an industry to push back on this stuff, to push back on sweepstakes, to push back on loot boxes. And, one of the things that we didn't talk about, and what we as Native American and gaming tribes, which is the new demographics of gambling, you know what I mean? The new ways of gambling, the cell phone. I remember in California when we were fighting the iPoker wars in the 2000s, you know what I mean? They wanted to say that a computer, once it turns into an iPoker thing, is a gambling device. Remember that one, James? So I think we need to relook at what everything needs to be changed. And, we're in a new world, and the old laws just aren't keeping up.
I was struck by, when you talk about sort of the history, I came up came out of law school in the 90s. And shortly after I started working for tribes, there was, my recollection, it was sort of an anti, as people were trying to, cabin in tribes and the expansion of tribal gaming, there was the National Impact Study Commission. And everybody got, riled up about that and thinking it was going to be a precursor to, limiting tribes' ability to expand their businesses. And as everything's evolved lately with sweepstakes and everything else that, ultimately becomes an attack on tribes, I'm just struck by like, what would the authors of that, study think now, and the members of Congress that authorized it, because they thought that gaming was going to be limited to Las Vegas and Atlantic City. And so I'm not saying there needs to be another one, but I do think that it's an example of how the expansion of all the different ways that gaming can be conducted from our cell phones and computers and other things that are probably going to get invented in the next couple of years. Is just screaming for more nimble regulation at the tribal level, state level, and federal level. And Samir had a good point that it's all a loophole, right? They're exploiting loopholes that generally exist in the state legislatures, and they really need, that's a great first area for them to crack down and make it easier for the state AGs to then say this is clearly illegal and it's infringing on whatever compact might be impacted or other things.
James, I was around during that time. Oh, go ahead, Samir. I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead, Samir.
No, so I just wanted to add a little bit of color. And I certainly don't want to create the juxtaposition of age with my example. But there's a video game called Diablo 4, and it's a really popular video game. Elon Musk has live streams playing it on X. And one of the main things, or one of the interesting aspects of Diablo 4 is that there's a myriad of different items, and these items are collection items. People buy and sell these items on eBay. They go for thousands of dollars. There is a forum called D2JSB or D2JSP, and it is a place where people can buy and trade and sell these Diablo items. There is also an underlying sports book at D2JSB. And people are buying what's called forum gold, which is a currency used on the forum to buy Diablo items. And you could use your credit card to purchase these forum golds. People are betting tens of thousands of dollars against each other on sporting events on D2JSP. So the reason why I bring that up is just to add a little more color to what James is saying, is that illegal gambling is going on in the dark in so many different places. And it behooves state regulators, federal politicians to kind of crack down on this, so that those that are offering these products the right way are also benefiting from going through that process.
I was going to say, I was around for the unlawful gaming stuff, and I remember everybody was all up in arms and how it was going to affect. And remember, tribal gaming was just getting on its feet, so we saw that as a personal attack on us. But then when it came out, it was so neutered. You know what I mean? It was just this piece of paper that had a bunch of suggestions and nothing of real substance, because it had been neutered. And by the way, the AGA came out of it. Fahrenkopf created the AGA and all that stuff too. So, I think we have to be careful when we watch it. I think that really drives home the point that it has to be done state by state, and if you get federal to get sloppy and weak, I think you have to come down hard in California, Florida, New Jersey, all the ones that already have teeth. But the thing is, in California, we have card clubs that have been busted again and again and again for money laundering, and yet nothing happens in that. So I think that's part of the problem in California, and probably a lot of the other states too, is the bureaucracy,
Well, Victor, I see a couple chat notes. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your question there, Keith White, but
hey, Keith.
He and then Michael Honig, from has his experience at NIGC, but I appreciate them chatting in there. Maybe this is more of if we approached it from almost a public health thing as a problem gambling. Now that I saw Keith White's, up there, really maybe that's what spurs state attorney generals to start acting more on this instead of just, I'm sure they don't even understand it when it's brought to their attention.
They're eating dogs, they're eating cats. That's what you have to say.
Okay.
That's what you have to say. That's how people know
Right.
you're serious.
So to kind of preempt what you're saying, Jason, you're absolutely right. And so there's the Sports Betting Alliance, but now the Sweepstakes have created their own alliance called the Social and Promotional Gaming Association.
Stupid People of Gaming Association, right? SPGA, right? I remember
Yeah,
that, right?
and it's funny because they throw the word in promotional,
Right.
and their product is the gold coins, but they have drafted user conduct and policies regarding responsible gaming and identifying, at-risk users. So there's a fight that's going to be battled. That's going to be waged for sure.
And by the way, they didn't do that until I started jumping up and down on their head. You know what I mean? They didn't have any. All of a sudden, they're responsible. Oh, we have all this stuff too. But listen, it's not going to last. You know what I mean? The writing's on the wall. We all see it. And I think we're here. We're looking for another path to go forward. And by the way, Keith, it's great to have you in there. And I think this is the big issue in the conversation we've been having, which is about player protection. There is no player protection. Again, even go back to loot boxes. You can go back to skins. There's no player protection. They're going after the children. They're going after the young demographic, and nobody's stopping them. And that's what we're here for, by the way.
To protect the children?
To protect the children. You know me, I'm all about the kids,
So
everybody knows that.
I don't see anything else, any more Q&As, Victor. Anything else, Samir, James, you want to leave us with? Or
No, just thank you for having us and continuing to elevate the issue. It's important. It's going to be the next big fight. I mean, I know Victor and I were messaging back and forth, and it's, working for Indian tribes means we're, fighting to protect what we have. It's always under attack. People are trying to take it away. And this is just a new way that's happening. So, we're mobilizing in a large part thanks to your efforts. So thanks for having us. Thanks for continuing to elevate the issue.
Well, listen, we'd like to invite you guys. We're working on the agenda right now. We'll be talking about sweeps. We'll be talking about crypto. Samir, we'd like to congratulate you on your upcoming marriage.
Thank you.
Wedding. It was that.
No, we were married. We're now going on our honeymoon.
Oh, nice.
Oh, sounds like a total lawyer. Sounds like a total lawyer. Listen, honey, married now, honeymoon later. You know what I mean? I got this paper I got to get out or something like that. Listen, we've all been here. We're all hard chargers at this point of the game. You know what I mean?
Victor's right. You two joined us in a panoply of all these other experts we've been bringing on. We even had the gentleman, Victor, who brought up the websites and tried to give a tutorial on how people are actually playing this thing. In real time. And, he actually went on and bought the coins and
that was Kudrow.
Yeah. Incredible. And we want all this again, just to rehash all this again at our trade show. And we're going to set it up again that way. So we're going to keep hammering them all the way up to March 30th when our trade show is. And I think, we'll get some, new people will be coming into DOJ. So maybe we'll get some reception there and start getting them to work on things that actually make people's lives better than, other than whatever the hell it is they're doing on a daily basis now. So, but we're looking forward to that because I really just think, this has got to be up there for our industry. And if we want to do anything else, respond to this other stuff, we've got to keep the main economic engine going. And that's our tribal gaming industry. So, and
we don't need any partners. So,
I will add just another interesting, you're kind of winding this down, but this is just food for thought, is when you have sports books that are regulated and that are paying taxes up to 51%, being in a capitalist society, what's stopping, big sports books from then creating sweep casinos or sweep sports books, and then not getting taxed? And so when you think about it from that perspective, it only, rings the bell louder for state AGs, for state politicians to kind of rein in this legal loophole that's exists on the books since, the Wire Act, in order to rein this in so that it can't be exploited more. And that for those industry stakeholders that have gone through the righteous avenue of being regulated, paying taxes, that they're seeing the fruits of their labor.
Well, you know what? And look at what they're doing in Connecticut, which they're in the lawsuit over there talking about clawbacks, and I think that needs to be a part of the discussion also. I think that's the type of thing that makes them think twice, you know what I mean? And that's where the Wall Street money is. So I think you have to go for the wallet. You have to go for nothing less. They're not going to take anything serious unless you go for what makes them hurt, and that's the wallet, you know. So, all right, I think we're done.
Okay. Thank you,
What are your
guys.
thoughts on social casinos and handful tribe for launch? The same feeling towards those as sweeps. Social casinos is, my tribe has a social casino. You go in and you gamble for free. It's about customer acquisition, brand identity, customer building. So, two different beasts. Sweepstakes completely different, has nothing to do with tribes whatsoever. And by the way, we know they're running around trying to find tribes to partners. That's what they were asking me. If I would help them finding the answers, a hard no. Everybody knows that. So it's just ridiculous. So, all right, gentlemen, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
We
much
really
for your
appreciate
time.
it. It's good to see Keith White out there. We're going to have you at our show too to talk about, and you know what? We need to talk about RG and stuff like that too. But next week we'll be talking about the administration, what it means for Indian country, about this flip-flop freeze and what that means. And so anyhow, listen, gentlemen, thank you so much. It was a great article. We really appreciate all the insights that you bring. Jason, thank you so much. So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Yep,
Thank
take
you.
care. Thank you.